Hi, it's Ian Alexander. I play Gray in the upcoming Season 3 of Star Trek Discovery, and live long and listen to a strange new pod.
Oh my god, who is that?
Who was that?
What
That
was
was
that
the
that came
coolest.
across our comms array there?
Just the loveliest of people.
Yes, Ian Alexander, one of the greatest human beings to exist on this earth.
The next
Who we
member of
finally
our
got
crew.
to see. Maybe.
Yeah.
We don't know.
Yeah.
But we finally got to see in this episode, and it was awesome. So, cello, everyone.
Oh.
I hope you're
Everybody
having
hang in there.
I hope you're having a great day, even with all this stressful and trilling ballot counting that's making you feel blue.
Hang in there for all the puns.
Who am I squidding? You don't even want to think about that right now. As you may have spotted, I'm your adorable host this evening, and I have a tall list of puns that you will forget me not. I'm joined by my you guys just look so sad. I'm joined by my trusty bridge crew, Captain Julian, Lieutenant Hawk, Rear Admiral Eric, and Ensign Aaron. Glory to you and your houses.
I don't know what
Glory
to
to
say
you
to
and
all
yours.
of that.
You didn't love it?
I'm trying not
loved
to.
it.
I'm trying not to choke on the water I just had.
I tried to make it very Trill centric, and I think I did a great job.
I
It was
pre-read it
delicious.
and I still wasn't prepared.
Mhm.
You didn't like cello?
Oh no, I
Cello.
like cello, and I especially really liked trilling instead of thrilling.
Yeah.
Whenever someone says
I
cello,
will. I will defer the puns to you.
Whenever
Whitmer, the puns to me.
whenever I hear cello, I think of School of Rock and Jack Black.
Yeah.
Aw.
Cello.
Cello.
Yeah, that's what I almost said when I started, and I was like, nope, wrong show. So yeah, if you're watching, hopefully you are watching, because we're more fun than anything that's happening in the news, obviously.
True.
We'll be doing a deep dive review of Discovery Season 3, Episode 4, that you all symbiote to enjoy.
Shut up, Wesley.
Maybe that's the last one, maybe. Also, a not so Vulcan hello to the members of our collective watching via their view screens, live on our Twitch. Keep the comments and questions coming all night long.
all night long.
All night.
All
night
long.
All night.
All night.
Strange new
Wow.
karaoke.
Dude, our mental state, you can tell where it's at right now.
We're not even
As
in your
always-
country and we're dying.
The
We
whole
are
world is exhausted.
in pain.
We are in a symbiotic relationship with them, so their pain is our pain.
It's true.
Are
It's
we
Trill.
your host, or are you guys the symbiotes? Are we the symbiotes? Are you the host?
Well, I'm the host tonight.
Okay.
Can't say that much for who's going to host on Saturday. Da-doosh. Okay, as always, a big thanks to Sam Dillard and Samo Studios for our Trektastic intro and outro music. I'm very exhausted. So, we do love music, though. Speaking of news, we don't necessarily have new news to tell you, but things are coming. We like to come up with lots of fresh, new, awesome content that's to be announced, so stay tuned. But AOC and Kate Mulgrew, on the other hand, broke the Trek Twitterverse by having a little conversation with each other. So who knows? Maybe AOC is going to do some sort of Star Trek related Twitch one of these days. I would love to see her and Kate Mulgrew do something together. I'd love to see them both on our show.
She
They're
should,
Maybe
totally
that's an offer if
invited.
you're watching.
Come be on our podcast.
Yeah.
We would love to have you. We would be honored.
she
We'd
should,
love to AOC you here. And we love to Mulgrow our crew more, you know?
she
I
should,
can't
I
even
think they
shame
would
you
love
for
the
those.
pod.
That was epic.
she
They
should,
would love the puns.
yeah.
They
AOC
would.
should definitely play Among Us with Kate Mulgrew and the cast of Voyager, because that would
Yes.
be amazing.
But then everybody would kill
Lord.
Tuvix.
Everyone would kill Harry Kim, unfortunately.
Oh my
I saw the brutal meme. Oh my
You'd
god.
be like, why'd I get vented? I wasn't even the imposter.
Listen, I think he would do the best in the video game because he's the youngest. I think Robert Picardo playing any video game would be hilarious. He on the podcast the other day, they called him up in the middle of it and he crashed his bike while they were on the freaking podcast with them and hurt himself. And it was the most dramatic podcast I've ever listened to. It was amazing. I mean, he
man.
seems to be okay, but still, you just heard it and they were like, "Are you okay?" And then you just like, I crashed my bike. Are you all right? Sorry, I'm gonna let this go, but it was amazing.
No, I was just gonna say, like, did he sit up and he was like, "Hold on, I have to take some cortical scans." I can't even say it.
He did. He said
cortical
something
fluid.
like that. I think he like scraped his butt or his leg or something. There was blood involved. So, and he made some sort of doctor reference, which is why Robert Picardo is an amazing EMH.
I love that, man.
He said cortical so much in that show. Like, I get it. Everybody has head damage from some bullshit on the ship, but like every episode, he's just like, yes,
Would you like
cortical abrasion? And I'm just like,
here's a cortical avocado toast.
yeah, here's a cortical stimulant. And I'm just like, what? It's a cortex. Anyway, if you haven't already, check out our Discord for awesome discussions and watch-alongs, like we sometimes do, as well as our Patreon program if you'd like to support our show. And speaking of being a patron, thanks to our awesome patrons collective, Anne Bradley. Oh, I didn't ask about this name ahead of time. Is it Aisha or Atia?
I'm going to go with Aisha, and she can tell us if we're wrong later.
Okay, Aisha, you can yell at me if I'm wrong. Please message me separately on
We're
Twitter
trying.
or call me out. You can call me out on Twitter. I'm fine with that. I'm going to guess that it's Aisha Camellopardalis.
I think that's absolutely 100% correct, and I'm
hope
half
so.
Greek. I would know.
Okay. So hopefully that's right. If not, yell at me. Brandon Felser, Mariah Gossett, Mag, Jeff Reeve, Simon Stager, and Amani Williams.
Yay.
I love our patrons. We've had so much fun with the Discord doing our watch-alongs, which are not just Patreon only, but just doing the videos and, having the conversations. And people, if you want to talk about Star Trek and watch episodes and just chat along, join the Discord. It's so much fun, and we do it like almost not every night, but a couple times a week, and it's really nice.
Yeah, we're almost done with
It's chill.
DS9 Season 1.
That's
Thank
crazy.
God, because it's a weird season.
It really
I
is.
forgot how weird it was.
It feels like a season 1.
Alan
Dude,
Moraine.
I want to use that now because this is my first time watching DS9 through. I want to use the Alan Moraine as a joke, but it's like I'm 20 years behind everyone else, so I'm like, oh, Alan Moraine. They're like, what the fuck are you talking about?
Dude, I forgot Alan Moraine until we were in the episode, and then they started skipping, and I was like, oh, it's this episode. I was like, Alan Moraine, yeah. Like, I totally forgot about it.
And now that's
So
our
bad.
Discord thing. Everybody, when something's crazy, they're like, Alan Moraine!
Truth.
What's happening? I don't know. Alan Moraine.
Alan Moraine!
Oh, man. Well, if that's it for the news, you guys know what it's time for. The Strange New Loop. It didn't hurt my ears that time.
I forgot about
Maybe
it.
got toned
It
down.
scared me.
Today, Hawk came up with our Strange New Loop. Thanks, buddy. I was a little busy, so I wasn't able to myself. This is a good one. If you were captain of a stressed out crew, what kind of stress-relieving group activity would you have them participate in?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I would do something to sort of help expend some energy, I think, to, sometimes when you're all hyped up, especially if a lot of things are going on, you've got a lot of adrenaline. And have you guys ever been to a place called Sky Zone or something like it? It's like a trampoline park. Yeah, it's awesome, right? And if you jump on a trampoline, try to frown. It's impossible. You're just like, I'm a child. It's amazing. So I would program, they don't have a holodeck. I would find some sort of trampoline situation and good music and like a big spread of food because I thought that was a good idea in the episode. But I would take everybody to future Sky Zone.
Nice.
I would love to see Saru try to wear those grippy socks with those hooves. You know what I mean? Just like,
Yeah, how would he bounce? Would it just be all toe action?
I think it would be
All
toe
toe.
action.
That'd
Yeah.
you see how gracefully he walks? Like, he could trampoline like
Oh my
nobody's
God,
business.
I want Sky Socks now, but like in the Star Trek Discovery style with the blue and oh my God, guys.
Ooh,
It could
Ah.
work.
with
It could be
ranks.
cute. Always
Cute.
ranks.
I think Brittany's been over to my house for a couple of these. I know Saru tried it with the meals and everything, but I think my take in doing it would maybe work a little bit better. Hawk, am I allowed any timeline, or does it have to be this timeline?
I'm thinking like at any timeline in that,
Okay.
if it's the 21st century, it's the 32nd century.
So if I was on like the Enterprise, like Enterprises that had holodecks, I would load whoever's house they wanted to go to. I would go say, hey, let's go to Will's house in Alaska, right? And we'd open up his house in the holodeck, and I would just get all the good food that everybody wanted and have a barbecue. We have at least 2 annual barbecues at our house every year. And we used to have a pool. So I'd have a pool, I'd have good food, I'd have good drinks, and people could just mingle and chat and just like shoot the shit. And I think, and it would be outdoors. And I think like having a big dinner inside of a starship is still a little bit claustrophobic. Like this would be open and free and wind at your back. So yeah, I would have a barbecue.
You could do it by that big ass tree.
I could do it by the big ass tree. I might burn the tree down with the barbecuing though.
It's
and then
big enough.
people
It was a big
probably,
tree.
even by Starfleet standards, people would probably want to murder me still. So maybe not.
If someone's claustrophobic in a closet, does that make them closet phobic?
Why not?
Why
I'm
not?
just wondering. I'm in a closet and I'm just like, how many? Oh Jesus! I just like. slapped
Can I ask
how many
a quick
people would
question?
find this like?
Do we
Okay.
think because they're 1,000 years in the future, Voyager through the 7 years, they like upgraded the ship. They added a bunch of Borg crap to it. They changed the ship, and I really like that at the end. It was like they'd had all that shit all over it. Do we think that Discovery? It's 1,000 years in the future. Holodecks fucking exist. Shouldn't they put a holodeck in that bitch? Come on.
Yes.
I hope
Holodeck stories
so.
are so good. Put a
I actually
holodeck in.
have a massive theory
I-
about this whole thing.
Yeah,
Maybe Eric and I are on the same
It's
page.
No, I
all
feel
a
like-
hologram.
No, I feel like at this point, like in the timeline, they wouldn't need holodecks anymore because they have the matter that just comes out.
Yeah.
Like, just gets made into things. So
I do think, judging by the preview of next week's episode, after all of that, like the Discovery will probably be updated a little bit.
yeah.
My big, I will take a second and do my theory because I'll forget about it otherwise, is that either by the end of the season or next season, they're not even going to be on the Discovery anymore.
Because of like the
This-
short trek too.
Yes, exactly. Yep.
The
Ooh.
Discovery is within all of them.
They laid the groundwork for that
Discovery
in
is the
tonight's
friends you make
episode.
along the
So,
way.
yeah. Okay, sorry. Back to
I make that
the
joke like every episode. I'm like, the true discovery is the friends we make along the way. But that's perfect for this episode because like everybody's yelling at each other. Did somebody else have a stress?
Hawk and Eric haven't gone yet, I don't think.
No,
I have an idea,
Yeah.
but I want to go last.
there's a reason. Like I'm gonna build a stone oven in my backyard. It's totally that reason, just like Julian said. But
S'mores?
s'more. Well, obviously, s'mores all
Like the
time.
guy who wouldn't leave his moon?
Yeah.
In DS9.
Yeah. But I would do the
We
theater.
just watched that one, didn't we?
Yeah.
We just watched
Burned
that one
his
on
house
Discord
down.
and live chatted it. You guys should join Discord.
And Kira was just like, 2 to beam up, and his house is just fucking on fire.
What is
Yeah, and
Oh,
the episode was over, and I was like, "Wait, where's the rest of the episode?"
No, that was it.
90s,
They Monty
90s.
Pythoned it. That's all you get. Connect the dots.
Sorry, Eric, didn't mean to steal your
Oh, no,
thunder,
no,
but I
I'm
was like,
just-
we just watched it.
I'm trying to figure out what our Discord is so I can put it in our Twitch
Oh, that would be
chat.
awesome. Yeah, no, I've been enjoying the watch-alongs and things like that, and then I see the parallel. Like we're watching Discovery, it's interesting to see what's different and what's the same. And then we had this whole thing about like, it's going to be Trill, and we were like, oh my god, is it going to be Dax? And I was like, no, it's not going to be Dax. And then Julian was like, it is going to be Dax, or it could be. And I was like, no. So we'll
Wait,
talk about that.
somebody thought Dax was going to happen? In this episode?
Julian thought Dax was a possibility. I thought it was not.
It wasn't my thought, but Eric was talking about his stone.
Yeah, and then I
oven.
got distracted by Discord. What was I talking
I was
about?
just filling in the space. I was filling
Thank
in the
you.
space.
Thank you. No, I do the theater thing, what theater kids do to relax, and not the sexy one, but like it's all about the trains of massages and just general relaxing and drinking and
I know what
chilling.
you're talking about.
That's
So
what theater
everybody on the
kids do.
Discovery just needs to make one big circle and
You know
just
they
massage
do
away.
that anyway on set. So
Yeah, yeah, that has to happen.
They should do it in the
Yeah.
shape of the comm badge. That would
That's
be
part of the
cute.
contract. That's what we need collectively as a nation right now. Everyone just line up. Massage.
And Brittany, you could be behind Saru because I bet with those big hands, it would just be like a real good massage.
did you see the clip for next week?
My
Like,
hands are
Yes.
very small, actually.
we finally got a close up of his hands, and it's really weird. Like his fingernails are like inside the ends, and
Ooh, I'll have
it's
to
neat.
rewatch that.
Yeah, weird.
Well, he's not human, so.
Weird.
Anyway, audience, you're gonna have to forgive us. We're really exhausted this week.
Spend the time.
I guess, Hawk, do you have something, or should I go?
I had something in that. I get what they were saying about like exercise and that and group activities and maybe a nice feast and that, but they're already exercising. That dinner party was a disaster.
It was an awesome disaster.
It was
That
a
was
great disaster.
every single Thanksgiving I've had for the last 4 years with certain people in my family. So I was like, Saru, honey, been there.
So I'm thinking for this crew, at the state they were in, the only thing that would have helped, psychedelic party.
Yeah.
Some sort of mushrooms. So it could be, 24th century stuff, whatever they find on some planet and that.
Whatever Saru grows in his room, he's like, look at this weird plant. And then they're like,
Oregon just
Tilly's tripping. She's
legalized
like,
mushrooms. I think it was Oregon, right?
what
I
if
think
they
they were
just ate some of the mycelial shrooms by accident? And Stamets is just like, no, that's a part of me. Because he's that like drugged out.
Anyways, I figure by the end of it, whatever they were stressed out about will not be there by the end. So psychedelic party.
I think it makes sense. Like, how often on Star Trek do we see like vision quests? Like Chakotay was always like Akuchimoya, and then why not? Like that's
Wesley.
I feel like
There was that one time Janeway saw God. Remember that episode where she was like, I think I finally get religion.
But I have a question for you though. What does God need with a starship?
it's a
What
toy.
does he?
She's like this. She's like, meow.
I think only maybe a couple of us got that reference.
I'm sad by that
I
reference.
just know you've made it before.
What does God
Seemed appropriate.
need with a
Need with a starship.
Perfect. Erin's already got it.
Yep, she's got her
I'm
starship.
ready. I got my Voyager.
I have two options I would do for my crew. One, I would have them all play D&D with me. And I would DM because there's nothing more fun.
That would cause
And that
fights
would be-
too.
It would.
Yeah. But
They kind
there's
of
a
live
lot of
D&D.
you could get a lot of therapy out of D&D.
That's true.
So that's when your characters start to argue with each other instead of you in real life. And you're like, why are we doing this?
Therapy.
Yeah. Therapy. And the other thing would be just an ultimate frisbee game. Ultimate frisbee, I love that sport. I played it all throughout college, like went to tournaments all the time, had so much fun. And it's one of those games where like even when you go to tournaments somewhere else, like most of the time, like the refs you have are just people from other teams that watch you, and it's all like nobody's like cheating or doing anything. Like it's all like respectful, and you're just like, yeah, that was totally out. Like that's on me, whatever. And it's like so chill and fun, and it can be competitive. So like if people want to be competitive, it's like that. But at the end of the day, like I just feel like it's such a chill sport, and I enjoyed playing it. So I think the crew could just like frisbee a bit, land on Earth, go by that big ass tree, and you're just like, universe point, let's go. Boom.
Would it be cool, like a cool future frisbee? Like it would just have, remember whenever they played like tennis, they had those like bullshit rackets.
Yeah.
Like Tron.
Yeah. Oh, that would be so cool.
Yeah, I have one of those.
dropped
I have
Voyager.
a Tron disc, the identification disc or
Yeah.
replicator.
Identification disc.
I've got one too.
Which colors?
But
I
in
want to do
college,
the light mod.
I had a light up one in college, but then the only problem is if one of your friends is colorblind, if you throw it to them and then it turns red, they will get hit in the face. So my one friend Cassie, every time we were like whipping it across the quad, because we would throw really far, like we were legitimately like frisbee players, like on a team. So like we would just like launch it, and it would just like you see the colors changing, so it's like blue, and then it's heading to this person's like green, and then we'd see it turn red, and everybody would just yell, "Cassie, it's red!" no matter where she was, and then like hopefully she wouldn't get hit. So yeah.
That's
Or as soon as
amazing.
it turned red, you're like, I can't throw to Cassie. Throw it somewhere else.
I think the changing colors would be too distracting. It was like, ooh, look at that. Red, red, red.
Yeah.
Bam.
Well, I mean, it's not for official tournament play. Like they have to be a certain size and weight, and normal plastic.
Wow, they weigh
And
it?
not
That's
frisbee.
fancy.
Not frisbee. No, there's just like specific weights. Like it's like
I didn't know
0.6
frisbee was that
ounces.
specific.
Yeah, I've been
Yeah.
playing ghetto frisbee.
Yeah.
I
And
know,
it's just
right?
it's just called Ultimate because technically Frisbee's the brand. It's a whole thing. Anyway, we're not getting into it.
Like Kleenex.
So, yeah,
Mhm.
basically.
Facial
it's like
tissues.
Band-Aid, the tournament.
People are learning so much on this podcast today.
I know. I apologize. So, forget that, and we'll move on to Forget Me Not, which is the name of our episode. Woo!
So
Segue.
good.
That
So,
would be a segue.
I try.
Up.
I should get a Segway and just roll it around sometimes and be like, here we are, kids. Going around the promenade. So the synopsis of this episode. Burnham and Adira visit the Trill homeworld in hopes of unlocking the secrets trapped within Adira's mind. Back on the USS Discovery, Saru's efforts to help the crew reconnect with one another take a surprising turn.
Yeah,
I feel like that's a pretty good synopsis.
Mhm.
Like, it's just vague enough.
it was
Yeah.
good.
And it's
Yeah.
not like
It was a
one
great
sentence like
episode.
last week.
Yeah.
And when
Well,
you're
some
just
of the
like,
lower decks ones were really vague too. I was like, really?
It's just like Mariner's up to her bullshit again, and you're like, yeah.
It was like
Yes.
Rick and Morty, where they're like, "This one's gonna be great, bruh."
Yeah, so big. So, I'm immediately going to talk about the opening in this episode because I think across the board, a lot of people think this is a good opening.
Yeah.
So we have Dr. Culber, aka Hugh. He's doing a medical log about how morale is at an all-time low on the Discovery and how the crew is realizing what a huge sacrifice they actually made, jumping 950 years into the future. And they're all struggling to find something to hold on to as each of them goes through their shared trauma, but they're doing it alone rather than together. So how did we like this opening and the music that was with it, if that's what you want to talk about? And
So good.
do we like that this concept was really being explored seriously as opposed to the crew spontaneously being fine the next episode like many of the previous series have done?
I'm gonna just freak out about the music in this episode real quick. Jeff Russo is a mastermind composer, and this is unexpected, but because I just got the email, which is why I've been looking away at my screen. Tentatively, I can't say 100%, but it's being worked out, so it is going to happen. But tentatively, we are going to have the fantastic Jeff Russo on our next episode. So stay tuned for details.
So
You want to see me
amazing.
cry on live?
Right?
I was
Yes.
going to say,
Start
that's one of those
crying right
TBA
now.
newses
So,
that I was like, we can't tell you.
Unfortunately, that won't be live the way we're working things out right now, but I can at least say that is happening. So that's really exciting.
Amazing.
So
Yeah, totally.
his score, I mean, the opening alone was freaking beautiful, right? It fit perfectly with Hugh's medical log. It felt very Star Trek. It felt very like I hope I don't butcher this word. I think I'm going to ethereal or
Ethereal.
Ethereal.
Thank you, ethereal. It was just ridiculously good, and I am gonna go real ahead real quick to talk about the music because the cello music that accompanied this episode, the entire episode from the beginning to the end, was just I haven't heard Star Trek music this good that is kind of part of a plot line since the Inner Light in TNG.
Mhm.
So
I agree completely. It elevated it.
I hate
The
you.
whole episode.
As far as Hugh, I think a lot of people have been saying like they want to see more Hugh, right? More Culber, and I got that this week. This was a fantastic episode for him. I think he did a great job. It was great seeing a log, right? Like this episode opened with two amazing Star Trek tropes, good ones. It started with a log and ended with a ship flying by.
Ship flyby, yay!
Like it was Star Trek. It was an episode of Star Trek, and this episode being Hugh centric in a way was awesome. I was really happy to see it.
I thought it was weird. Not weird. If you look back at the music of, I'm gonna go back on the music because again, amazing. Like Julian said, the cello has been such a instrumental instrument. God, I wish I didn't say that.
Instrumental instruments. Yes.
To the theme of Discovery, right? You hear it every week, but to have it become one of the characters' main instruments is like there has to be something more in there, right? It feels like they're going to be way more important than we think they are, which is awesome for those characters. Again, the beginning. Having Culber in fully white, like I love the white uniform and the contrast between him and everyone as he was walking through the hallways and everything. He just seemed like an angel to everyone. Mm-hmm. And having played Angel in Rent, like that just seems apropos.
I loved it too, and I think you guys, I mean, you sort of hit it on the head. I binged the whole first two seasons like a month ago. And so watching it now and going through the whole thing of him dying and then coming back to life and this whole idea that he's sort of been through it. And I think there are parallels to what we're all doing right now with coronavirus, because I remember the first like month or two, everybody's like, I'm going to clean the shit out of my house. I'm going to start 3 new hobbies. I'm in an up. And then we all hit it down. Right.
Yeah.
And I think that's what we're seeing here. Right. Because they're feeling that isolation, like they have each other, but everything they knew is different. Like the world we know it's the same world, but it's different, right? And it's the same thing for them. They went to Earth and they have a touchstone, but everything is different. The people are different. And I feel the parallels there. And I think that his character. I'm kind of bouncing off what you guys said, because Eric, you said how he's in stark white, and I never thought of it that way, but I think it makes sense in a, you know, almost in a military way, because you can spot the people you need, but he really is. He's like a shining light that you can see, and he brings that hope. The thing I'm looking forward to in this next season, I want to see that, because he's sort of like, he reminds me of the Doctor in Voyager in a way, but in an opposite way, where he's very optimistic and he's sort of running the game. But I want to see the medical team be more fleshed out, because it's a little like that medical bay to me is a little bit too sci-fi right now, where it's like people go in and they go out, but it doesn't feel real enough for me. And I want him to get more storylines that are his own. And I think that this storyline felt more like with the Captain's Log, it was amazing. We had the Trill storyline and his story. It felt more Star Trek, like old school Star Trek to me, but mixed in with what we're doing now. It felt like a beautiful progression, and it felt like a story that, even though it's part of a bigger story, it felt like an episode for this week in a way, but not in a bad way. I don't know. I hope I'm not rambling, but I loved this whole episode. It was so good.
It's weird because
Definitely.
all the other series, like except for Lower Decks and Discovery, you spend a lot of time in the medical bay, right? They do a lot of analysis there, but you don't really see that in these newer shows.
Yeah, they've been jumping in and out of there really quickly, and I would like to see more stories, because I think there's a lot to be said, especially, you know, we see characters going through trauma. So let's see what the future medical facilities are like.
And if you watch this week's Ready Room, Wilson Cruz kind of hinted at, because Will Wheaton asked the question, like, is Culver kind of being set up to be like the next Deanna Troi? And he was like, yeah, he's going to be like the physician and kind of ship's counselor. And I think that's a great role for him.
I'm loving all of the Will Wheaton stuff, like the Ready Room. I think it's really cool, and I love that they have him doing it. And please, God, let us see him in Picard. That'd be so good.
Yes.
Okay, I'm done.
As an
How
ensign.
about you, Hawk?
I like this intro. It was good. The one person who kind of been dominating my thoughts over the last few episodes has been Detmer. You know, and we kind of focused on her in that, just hitting the treadmill and that, but still with that blank, distant look in her eye and that.
Yeah.
You know, and I think by the end of the episode, I kind of got more of an understanding of where that PTSD was coming from and that. But I think we probably maybe discuss it more towards the end in that. But
Yeah, we'll wrap around.
yeah.
But I will agree that. Go ahead. You can continue.
No. I that's all I'll say for now on that.
Okay. Yeah, this opening I really enjoyed as well. I love that immediately. Like, we all love Hugh as a character. It was so devastating last season, like between him dying and then struggling to understand himself. Like, we all just wanted Hugh back, really. And now he is back, and he's definitely growing to have a different sort of position on the ship, which I do hope he is more like a counselor and working, obviously, in the medical bay. But it was very interesting because he is picking up on the fact that, like, the crew is not okay. Physically, like, yes, I run these tests, like, we're beasts. We run around the ship all the time like we're physically fit. But mentally, we're not okay. And it ties into what you said, Aaron, where it's happening right now. Everybody, like, people ask me every day they come to work, how are you doing? And I'm like, living the dream. I've said living the dream so much. It was already my tagline, but I said it so much this week, I was annoying myself. I'm like, I am not okay.
That's why I bring you Vietnamese iced coffee last night.
Exactly. None of us are okay.
You can't say that though, right? Like, that's, people say that, it's a way of saying hello, and you can't be like, no, I'm terrible, because that's
well, I know
not
that.
what they want.
But it's just important because Hugh was even saying that the crew themselves, like, they're pretending they're fine and they're not. He mentions towards the end of the episode, he was like, yeah, everything's better now that people stopped pretending things were fine. Like, if you actually come to terms with, this whole episode is about acceptance. Both of the plot lines are about acceptance, like accepting yourself, accepting your emotions, accepting what situation you're in or what you're going through. So I thought it was so interesting that as much as the A and B plots seem like they're like totally different directions where you're like, they don't really have anything to do with each other. It's the same thing, but you're seeing it reflected in two different groups of people.
You're
That's
right
the
on.
exact that's the exact same word I thought of when I saw this episode and trying to sum it up in one word: acceptance.
Yeah, acceptance. And they mention it. It's the word pops up quite a bit, but it's never around the same time in both the plots. So it's like you could miss it if I guess your mind's not in that state. But I did love the music too when it opened with the music, and he was giving his log, and you first see Detmer, and she's like got that stare, and he knows she's not okay. Like, I started tearing up. I was like, will somebody give Detmer a hug
And
already?
Owo looking at her, just like, I want to help you, but I can't.
Yeah.
I have a question about that.
Mhm.
That's not how I took that look, and I'm not trying to romanticize everyone because like I think we have a lot of ships that we want to see, but I've seen a couple looks from Owo to Detmer, and I'm like, is Owo into Detmer? Like, is
I
that
hope so.
becoming a thing? Because I feel like they've been slow building it.
Mm.
I wouldn't mind
I would
it.
be so.
I don't mind. I
into
wouldn't
that.
mind it. I wouldn't mind it. It's just I
Brittany,
like.
let's start shipping it right now.
Oh, I was gonna say, is it a slow growing thing?
Yep,
Like,
never
um,
mind. It's over.
I literally. I just.
Do
I
you
saw
want to
that.
place a Betmer on that Detmer love?
Oh my lord.
Oh, wrong button. God.
If it does happen, I will ship it because God, I love me some space gays.
I
But
like.
also-
Days.
I hope it's
I
a
don't know,
love
though.
between two best friends, because
Yeah.
You can see that too.
I don't mind it being romantic, but it would also just be nice to see two really good friends on that ship.
I have to
Agreed.
retroactively
Shut up, Wesley.
because I hit the wrong button.
I just love how
Oh.
much love there is between all of the different crew members, and I
Mhm.
like how there's a vibe of it that is, there are so many different kinds of people, and you know, as women, like I think one of the reasons, I mean, I grew up with Voyager, but seeing different people being just sort of being connected like that, I think is important, and I think Discovery has taken it to that next level, and it just feels natural and real, and I really love that. And also, I just want to say Detmer's performance, I'm sure we're going to get to it, that's Emmy shit to me. Like her, everything about that, when she was the way she was in the beginning at the
Oh,
table with the
so good.
Yeah, the
when she talked
table
about
was
the
good.
haiku. That was
Haikus.
insane.
Yeah.
And I'm gonna do the thing I always do, where I talk about the Delta Flyers, because they've been doing haikus to describe the episode the last like 5 ones. So can't wait to hear what they say, if they even talk about it. They
Their
generally
haiku is gonna be a haiku. They're gonna be like, what
A
did
haiku
Detmer
of
say
haikus?
before she had a mental breakdown?
don't. The haiku was so haiku.
I love that this series and Lower Decks have both put in like this big importance on therapy. Like these are themes that we don't really see on Star Trek, and to have it forefront in both Lower Decks and Discovery is just an amazing thing, for especially during these times, right? When mental health is so important.
And you know they didn't plan that ahead of time because they both had to produce this before the pandemic happened. So it's really good timing, Star Trek.
Yeah.
Therapy works.
Yeah, but it's getting a lot of people through the pandemic. So once again, join our Discord. We'll help you get through the pandemic and everything else. So speaking of you, he not only examines, everybody else on the crew, but then he then moves on to examine Adira, because they're attempting to understand why she doesn't have the memories of her past host, because they're understanding that she has a symbiont. But how does she not remember? So she mentions that the last thing she remembers was waking up in an escape pod before she was found by the United Earth Defense Force. And before I move on, I just want to mention to the audience, like, I understand the actor is non-binary, but in this season, they mentioned that the character is referred to as female in the show for like a specific reason, because they weren't out yet. It wasn't determined for the character yet. So when we're saying it, we're definitely not doing it to say the wrong pronouns or be horrible. So I just wanted to say that now, in case it wasn't mentioned. Maybe we mentioned it last episode, but just in case.
Communication is important, and the fact that we're doing it and you're taking the time, I think, is important.
Yeah.
So
Thanks.
Bottom line, we love Adira.
We do.
Yes.
We do
She's endearing.
very much.
She's endearing.
Oh, you
Endearing.
stole it
Yeah,
from
that'll
me.
work.
You stole it from me. I hate you.
Anyway,
Love you.
the Discovery crew decides to head to the Trill home planet in order to see if they can help Adira. And upon arrival, we learn from the Trill Commissioner Boss that the Trill population was decimated after the burn. So I don't know about you guys, but I cried at this point. Even though I kind of knew like it probably happened to them too, but like, I mean, we know the burn destroyed a lot of ships, but like, how was that news, hearing that a whole civilization of like, and we know the Trill from Other Trek. It hit me hard because I love Jadzia so much, and even though she's already dead, I was just like, oh my god, the Trill are like going extinct.
Well, first, it's really cool, right? Like, not that what happened to them is cool, but at first glance, it's cool. It's like, oh, okay, we're 930 years in the future, but we're at Trill. We're welcome. They recognize us as Starfleet. Like, this is great. And
yeah,
then,
that was awesome.
yeah,
And they have Pokemon. Did you see that? The Goldeen just jumping through the
and
Goldeen.
the look on Saru and Michael's face, that sigh of relief when they're like, yeah, we're welcome, like, thank you, Discovery. It's like, okay, good. But then you hear about what happened, and it's like, how many more, civilizations that we know about from Star Trek? Klingons, Romulans, Andorians, Gamorreans are from Star Wars. I'm not going to say it.
Don't tell me.
Although we did
don't
see
tell
them
me the
recently.
Gorn have Gorn
We did see them recently, but the Gorn are apparently fucking with subspace, so I'm thinking like Omega later on, but I don't know. Anyway, it's absolutely devastating. So when we eventually, and I don't want to skip ahead too much, go down to the planet and they kind of have this little bit of hostility, you can kind of understand it. And they obviously explore that a lot more, but yeah, it was crazy.
That we do.
I love the deep dive into the Trill this episode and that, because with the burn and that, you must think how many of those symbionts actually died because they couldn't get back to the home world to get a new host, and we know that there's problems with them, like when they try and bond with another life form, and that they're that episode with TNG with Riker and that was starting to make him sick, and that and I like that, that Adira managed to, we know why why the host actually took to the symbiont in this episode.
Do.
Yeah, we
Can't wait to get there. And we were kind of right when we theorized last episode, where we were just talking about like the two characters. We're like, who's this Grey gonna be? They're a Trill, but doesn't Adira have a Trill? And we're like, what if their Trill, their symbiotes are linked? And I was like, I don't know, maybe. And now I'm looking back and I'm like, Brittany, I was about to say you dumb bitch, but like you got it. You fucking got it. You weird Trill little worm.
Squid.
Yeah, you little squid.
Squiddy.
It was
Yeah, I like
interesting
that.
because Riker was a little bit older, and we got Adira who's younger, and I think maybe, and it's 1,000 years in the future, so there's some evolution on both sides, I'm sure, and I think there's a lot of symbolism for evolving what you think, because I think the Trill they're so important, right? We talk about they have that past knowledge that makes them. It's like having an elder around for a long time, but yet we see the prejudice there, and I think there was a lot of, like you said, it's about acceptance, and it's about change, and it's about adapting. And I thought it was, this whole episode just made me like, I was just like, oh my God, I feel so many things, which let me tell you, feeling things like this today was just really good. So
Yeah, it was cathartic crying I had. I thought, like, I cry all the time from Discovery, and I even joked that, like, season 2 made me cry every episode, so I'm like, season 3 is gonna totally destroy me. And I'm literally crying, like, 5 times an episode. But I don't feel sad, like, I'm not gonna rewatch it. I'm just like, wow, that felt really good to cry. I needed that.
it's
And I
good
even
Star
said
Trek
that
crying.
today. Yeah. What about you,
Hashtag
Liz?
Star Trek feels. Star Trek feels. It's just nice that it feels like, it still feels like Star Trek, even though we're 1,000 years in the future and we're on a show that's 20 years produced, 25, I don't know, whatever, and it still feels the way I think it should feel, and it's still talking about things that are important, and I think that's what's like blowing my mind.
Yeah, I agree. So, moving on from the Trill, that devastating news. Back on the ship, we have Saru, who's talking to Stamets about his physical condition, because even though he's, okay, he was impaled and wasn't doing too hot earlier in the season. So he suggests that maybe they should look into an alternative for the spore drive, since this future is pretty much barren of dilithium and you can be tracked by it, all these other issues can occur. So he's hoping that maybe they can come up with some alternative fuel, because if Stamets is ever incapacitated again or killed, or like something happens, they don't want to be stuck where they're at. And they also don't want to put it on him anymore to be like the reason they're able to travel. So Tilly mentions that maybe they could look into dark matter and, as an alternative, but Stamets is ruder, or I mean, he's never really like rude, but he was actually rude to her and like just dismisses her completely. And you're just kind of like, man, what is up with him? Everybody's acting kind of testy on the ship. So throughout the episode, we see that crew members are irritable with one another. And Hugh advises Saru that even though they're physically okay, like I mentioned earlier, they're suffering from that shared trauma and they need a mental break.
Yeah.
So go ahead.
No, I was going to say, and I know we're going to talk about it more and more, but like, in both the A and B plot of this episode, PTSD was the entire theme of Forget Me Not, like the entire theme. We're gonna get to Adira's memories and being in the pool, but her memories were blocked by PTSD. Detmer, I mean, listen, you control theorists out there. It was PTSD. It's not just Detmer, like you just said. It's Tilly, it's Detmer, it's
Stamets, it's Owo, it's
Stamets.
Saru.
Dude, it's even Giorgio. Like,
yeah.
Like this was the PTSD episode, and they portrayed it in such an awesome way. I mean, not the PTSD is awesome, but they portrayed it in a very realistic and way that like everybody understood what was going on.
Mm-hmm. And I think we can all relate to right now because we also need a mental break.
Yes, absolutely.
And we'll get more into like that aspect later. This was just a quick jump they did to the ship again, and then we went back to Trill. So then in the next part, we'll finally get to talk about some of the breakdowns that happened. So then we had the Trill commissioner who is discussing with Michael and Adira, which I thought it was really nice that Hugh suggested that Michael go down with her because she's going through this like self-discovery journey too, where now she's back on the ship, but she doesn't really know her place. And I think that involves with her acceptance as well, like accepting that, oh, I actually have my crew back now. Where am I at? What am I doing?
And she's like probably the only member on board who doesn't have PTSD, right? Like she's had a year to cope and kind of like get through it all. So that makes her out of place as well.
She has her
she's
own
dealing
PTSD.
with other things, yeah.
Everybody
She's dealing with other
does
things, but I wouldn't call that
discovery.
PTSD.
Her
with what she's dealing
PTSD
with.
is that she thought she was going to be alone there forever
Yeah.
because after a year, you think they're not going to show up for 100,000 years.
True, but she had let it go with that interaction with Tilly.
Yeah,
There's only so much, right? You can let go for that.
True, no, true.
Let it go.
Oh God.
Plus, there was Culver had noted something when he went to visit her in her room, and that she's about how she's kind of changed, how she's kind of adapted, and that he looked around the room and that and said it's very busy and that. And I think from the first season we saw her in her room, it was always very barren, very yeah. Now she's kind of collecting little, there's more memorabilia, more kind of little stuff that's hers.
One of us.
I don't know what you're talking about.
He also implied every nerd can relate to that.
3 seasons from now, it's going to look like Eric's background in her room, in her quarters.
And I think he also implied in that scene that it wasn't even just that she was like amassing things to show like what she's been through and what she cares about or connects to, but also like Michael is notorious for carrying weight, like of all these decisions, all this shit she's done and been through. So even though she's back and she's had that year away from the ship, like she still carries this, it's not necessarily guilt, but just all the things weighing on her. So I think Hugh also was like, you should probably go down to this planet too. Like maybe through helping this other person, like you can finally like feel like you can take some burden off of you or really think about things. Which I think appears when you actually see Adira going through her memories and Michael's like helping her through it. So we had, once the Trill Commissioner realized that Adira was human, all of a sudden, like Julian said, you have this sort of shift in the way they're talking, and all of a sudden it becomes hostile. Because as much as they were relieved at first that a symbiote was returning, the fact that it's been bonded to a human is an abomination to them. And we know the Trill have like this strict sense of like laws, and it's not necessarily a religion, but like a way of life that we've seen show up in, especially in Deep Space Nine, when we see any depth in those episodes and how constricted and limited it can be. And Michael immediately defends her because that's what Michael does. She's the best. And that's a good reason she went down there. And after she takes out a few Trill, because you miss 100% of the shots you don't take, and Michael don't miss. You know why, Julian? You know why, Julian?
Because she's not throwing away her shot.
Because she's stunning. That was good though. I said she's stunning. But anyway.
You had to use the one Hamilton reference.
Say one
that
quick
was good.
thing though. I thought it was strange that 1,000 years in the future, like they had a good greeting and everything, but this sort of important thing. They were only gonna. First of all, they told them they were sending down their medical officer, and then it was someone else. So if I were the Trill, I'd be like, wait, what? That would be kind of a little off for me. You only sent down one other person to another planet you haven't been to in 1,000 years. I sent down not a boarding party. That's the wrong word. A away team. Send an away team. That wasn't a real away team.
Why did they transport down?
I don't know.
Yeah.
Because taking a shuttle is fun.
I guess.
Maybe their
It was-
transporters aren't as good.
It was for bonding purposes. Oh my
Okay,
god.
okay.
Anyway.
The new transporters are awesome. I mean,
But they don't
personal
have the new
transporters,
ones.
Why
Not
does
all
it
of
must
matter
have
how
gotten
we
a
got
couple.
down to the homeworld?
It matters.
But they didn't.
Plot.
I feel like they should have taken like 3 more people, like a couple red shirts and maybe 1 more crew member.
It's
I
'cause-
think they
I
just
was
assumed-
happy with it just being those two. Sorry, Brittany.
Yeah, I think
Yeah.
one for plot purposes it mattered, and then like for
It worked.
character
It worked.
growth-
I loved
for
it.
character
but I'm
growth,
just
it
saying.
needed to be the 2 of them, but also it was for. God, where am I at?
Reasons.
No, Adira she has a symbiote. They had no reason to think that the Trill were going to be hostile to one of their own. They're like, look what we found.
I mean,
Maybe
but
you can help
still,
I
them."
wonder-
It's the
They agreed
future.
to it over the ship.
I wonder
The
because they
future.
have earlier teleportation.
Yeah.
Yeah, I wonder if because she's a Trill, they worry about the melding. Like,
Okay.
right?
I
We
don't
saw it
know.
in
I
the
don't know,
original
I feel like
movie,
we're getting way
and that was a
distracted
regular.
by how somebody's
It feels so
transporting.
Stargate
There is
sometimes.
a problem with. There's a problem with Trill in that and using the transporter. I think.
Wasn't that a
They
thing
were like
back in the
afraid,
day?
right? They thought it would like fuck them up, right?
I'm pretty sure Jadzia uses the transporter all the time, though.
No,
in
but it was
GTA
like
9.
that's one of those. I read about this. The reason that the Trill were around for a while, but they didn't really know about them was because they sort of kept it to themselves that they were symbiotes, and they were suspicious of transporters for a long time.
Yeah.
So Trill people refused to use transporters for a long time until they felt like it was safe because they thought it would show up in their life signs, and
Well,
it would.
we're 900 years in the future, so I think we just need to like
The
move
future.
on.
But they can't
We'll
even
just-
walk.
this
But
is
the
like a Discord chat we
Discovery
can
people
have.
don't know. Oh yeah,
It's a
sorry.
Discord chat we could have.
You're right. You're right.
I just don't want to go over time.
The reason
So anyway,
why is because they
You
wanted
should
to
not have
sell the
added me to
model.
this podcast. I'm terrible.
They wanted to sell the model
this
of
is
the
me
shuttlecraft.
politely trying to segue.
That was a pretty dope shuttlecraft.
So
I'm
anyway,
just saying.
oh my god, that was a nice shuttlecraft, and they fixed it up. So at least one of the Trill leaders, I guess, or one of the Trill that greeted them, G was his name, is one that actually believed that Adira is basically the future for their species. So Trill, eventually their symbiotes were going to have to bond with non-Trill species in order for them to be able to survive. So after Michael takes out a few of them, he offers to take them to the special cave in order for her to reconnect with her memories.
Sauna.
So, but before we get there, it's time for an awkward family dinner. So,
It really was.
Saru tried to make the crew feel connected with a dinner and a day off, but it falls into disarray as a harmless game of speaking in haiku dissolves into the crew fighting amongst themselves after Detmer has a breakdown. What did we think of, once again, this plot, the Sphere offering assistance to Saru, and also that entire dinner scene, Giorgio included?
It's
Dude, Saru went with this the computer going a little scary.
it was
Wait,
a sphere,
like-
was it not? It was
Yeah, well,
Yeah, it
and
was a smear.
Yeah, it was the
It was the
Sphere.
spear data, yeah.
I get that, and like I was watching it. I had just been awake for like 10 minutes, and I had to watch it before I went to work. So I didn't. It took me a little while to get that, and so I get why he was a little more trusting. But if the computer started to use different voices and stuff, I've seen so many movies where that is just evil. I was
bad.
like,
We can't
he's
do
just
that.
like, yeah, cool, no prob. And then at the end of the episode, he talks more about it. And I love your idea that Discovery is going to be abandoned in the future, whatever. But I don't know. I at the end, all I'm going to say about that is someone give Detmer an Emmy.
And that's
Oh.
what I want to talk about
Yes.
because right, Emily Coates killed it this week, like absolutely killed it. When she starts going off about Stamets bleeding all over the floor, you know that's it, right? Like that is such a typical PTSD like mental break. I've been like I've legitimately been there. I've had one of those. It is not fun.
Yeah.
It was powerful. You know, and she needed it. It was finally the breakdown after these, 2 episodes that we've seen her that she needed to have. It was super dark, but she was just so good in that moment. The way they shot her, both when she's doing the jump rope and then during the dinner scene, and then when she finally goes and says like, I need that talk to Culber. I mean, this dinner scene is nowhere near the same without her. And you talk about it a little bit more. I mean, the back and forth between Stamets and Tilly as well, and then the back and forth between Stamets and Detmer was like,
Yeah.
I'm
It
the
was
pilot.
intense.
I landed this fucking ship. Like I am better than you. She was like a typical like fighter jock in that moment, right?
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
Like
Oh, it was
Starbucky.
incredible.
I love
Yeah.
that when she started her haiku, it started a little bit slower and then it kept on building and going faster, and it just amped up that anxiety that everyone was having at the table at that moment and in us, the audience. So, like, hats off to the writers and the actors in this whole scene. Like, just amazing.
And it shows so much that the more we hide our emotions and our pain, the more it's going to come out in inappropriate ways. It's going to come out explosively. And, I think that Beckett Mariner says it best, that therapy works. And
Therapy works.
Therapy works. And I think that we see that, Hugh, he knows these people are not doing well. But from his own experience, he's sort of waiting for people to come to him. And I think there's a balance of that where you want to kind of connect with people and you don't want them to explode. That's sort of a Deanna Troi. But he's a doctor. He's not a psychologist or, a therapist. Those are different things. And the ship does not have a counselor. But I think he's connected enough to see those issues. And I'm interested to see if they continue to explore it. I hope they do, because I think it's important for all of us. And I think that there are a lot of people who therapy is becoming a lot more common and people are more comfortable with it. But I think that A, everybody needs therapy, and B, it's going to allow more people to seek it out and feel comfortable with it. And I think that's when Trek is at its best. It connects us to things and opens up doors. And I don't know. I'm excited to see where that goes.
He has
and on sorry, just real quick on Twitch, Mag goes, my heart goes out to Detmer. I mean, I feel like we all feel that way, right? I mean,
we're in her Detmer.
Didn't you make
the
that one
actress
already?
Herself. No, I said I owe my life to OO. That's
My
what I
bad.
said
My
last
bad.
week.
I love that Culver has such a warm and like calming voice throughout the whole time. Whenever he talks to anyone, there's no. It's like his voice is listening. I don't know if that makes sense.
He's like ASMR.
Yes, sort of. Yeah, and
I would listen to that podcast to fall asleep if he was like, "Today I'm going to tell you about ducks. Ducks are beautiful."
oh my god,
His
I'll
best
definitely
man
listen to that.
I mean, Eric, you've already said it. Angel.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Tear.
Yeah. I know.
Aw.
I know what my favorite part of the dinner was, but Hawk, what did you have about this scene?
Focusing back on Detmer and that, I don't know why it took me so long to kind of like click in like where the source of the PTSD was coming from and that. But yeah, it was when she was talking about being the pilot and being responsible for the ship and that. And you know what flashed in my mind? The beginning of Top Gun.
Oh, damn.
No,
Yeah,
the beginning
Top
of Top Gun.
Yeah.
Yeah, the pilot having the freak out after the MiG almost gets him and that. And like, I think this has got to be a common occurrence among like any sort of pilots, and that they're responsible for these like not just lives and that, but like also the ships that they're controlling. I'm losing my train of thought on this one, but
No, you're 100%
but
right.
Hawk, and I'll do it again because we make the reference every single week on this show, is very much Battlestar Galactica, right? Because Lieutenant Gaeta is a pilot and he gets PTSD from doing his own. He's got to be correct on his calculations every time the Galactica jumps. It is that like having all of these lives literally in your hands.
In the palm of your hands. They call it a
Poor
joystick,
kid.
but you are not really having that much joy.
There were vibes of, I didn't want to say that earlier, but I saw there was like Kara Thrace vibes. There were like, because she did that too, where she's like, you guys don't understand what we're doing. And everybody else is like, we have our own thing. I think that I love that, because I think that Battlestar is a hard sort of series to follow. And I don't want Star Trek to be that, because I think they're two separate things. But I think the parallel, if done correctly, can be really amazing. Because Stargate tried to do that and they didn't do it well. But I think Discovery is actually in Stargate universe.
I love Universe.
Well, you're wrong.
I loved Universe,
but anyway,
too.
you're both wrong, and it's okay. But I think that Discovery is doing what Universe did not do. So
It was a long road for them to get home.
It
Getting
really
from
getting from there to
if,
here.
really
if you guys
was.
want to have a sub podcast where we talk about those things, we can do it.
It's like,
We're gonna have to
dude.
make it whenever
you're
they
wrong.
make another
You're totally
Stargate
wrong.
show. We'll do that.
Please.
Sorry, one more thing. The common element there is like the military background in that, because these kinds of feelings, she doesn't talk about this, because these kinds of feelings and these kinds of thoughts get you washed out,
Yeah.
and taken off flight duty, So
But they also
I
have to
think
let him out in order to be on duty,
exactly.
So nobody mentioned it, but my favorite part of the dinner was Giorgio. 100%
Oh my
Giorgio. And I will
God.
talk about this because it's not just Giorgio herself as a character, but I've been a longtime fan of Michelle Yeoh. And the roles she gets in American shows and films are always the bullshit stuff they do to Asian actresses all the time. They're always these silent, strong warrior women that are always like super, conserved and like respectful and everything. And to
That
see
was
her
her
as
original
Giorgio-
character, right? I mean, if you think about it.
And then this Mirrorverse her is the opposite. But I think it's so freeing to see a female Asian actress be able to sit down at a dinner table and be rude as fuck. So Saru is trying to talk to everybody like, this is like, we're going to have this like family togetherness. We're going to, try and bring some levity and talk about, what we appreciate about each other, blah, blah, blah. And she immediately just stabs a fork in the food and is like, oh, sorry, you were talking. And to be able to give her this sort of like range and ability to like have fun and not be stuck in this Asian stereotype, like it's not hinged on, anything like that. Like her character is free to be this crazy roguish character that she is. And then the fact that everything goes crazy and then she gets up last and like says, well, at least the wine's good, takes the glass and the entire bottle of wine and walks out. I was just like, Michelle, I already loved you.
Speaking of a
I'm
Starbucks
so
move,
happy for you.
Yeah, right.
Yes.
How did the scariest possible character, who I'm still gonna say, listen, I'm gonna say it every time now, she's going to become the supervillain at some point. She is the comedic relief in this one in a good way. Like, I loved her in this episode, but she was hilarious.
There was one other part in the dinner scene that we didn't talk about, but I love, and they talked about it in the after show that I can't remember the name of right now. Ready Room? Is that right?
Ready
Anyway.
Room.
Well, waiting.
When Dr. Culber starts the haikus and screws up, and there's that moment of levity, they actually talk about it in it, and it's such a honest moment, and it felt real, and it made that scene for me until the upsetting part.
Yeah, that's always it.
Do you feel like the fact that they were doing haikus sort of reminded you of, because in TNG they're always like going to concerts and shit, and they're doing all these
Trombones.
And I love that Discovery, like we've seen them have parties that felt more sort of contemporary, but I felt that was a nice balance of haiku, like that's such a an art form that is sort of revered. I thought that was a nice balancing point for them. They do a really good job of making people not feel too sort of highfalutin, is that a word?
I know what you mean. Like hoity-toity, like
hoity-toity.
Like, oh, we're so intelligent. This is the type of game we play. It was like it's a believable thing that they would do at a dinner table because
they feel
fancy
elevated, but they still feel like people that we could connect with, and I think they do a good job of sort of straddling that line.
I agree. Julian, do we have anybody on Twitch, or are we good to move on?
we just had Mag say, "Oh, good, Giorgio misbehaving."
But
She
it was just
aims to misbehave.
I love her character, and I love what she brings to the role, and it's just nice to see because we all know, Eric knows more than anybody else how much Asians are typecast.
Stereotyping, casting.
Stereotype.
Yay.
So, moving back to the Trill homeworld, we have Adira. They head to the caves. She goes into the moon pool and starts to enter this sort of area where we're visually transported to a representation of what Adira's memories are going to be. And they're kind of these threads that attach to her like nerve endings. Michael jumps in to try and save her because she doesn't know where she went. She just disappeared. And then ends up helping guide her through her whole emotional backstory. So she slowly is unlocking these memories, and we finally are introduced to the character of Gray. Before I get to that, I just wanted to mention, how did you guys feel about the visual effects immediately in the scene? Because I was like,
Love
Love them.
good. Damn.
Blown away.
Yeah.
so good. Yeah,
This
I was
season-
when they did that tilting
impressed.
back thing in the eyes, they were like, and I was
Yeah,
like,
and it was
whoa.
Yeah.
So they built that set, like they built that entire set, and they did like none of the like being in the water in the pool was CG. They had a crew member in the pool down there with them, pulling them down into the water.
Yeah.
But the eyes turning gray were obviously CG, but like the actual effects.
That wasn't real.
No.
Yeah, sorry, they actually have real threads.
Yeah.
That,
That was freaking cool. And the threads of like the symbiote were some of the most beautiful visual effects I've seen in a show in years. They were,
And it felt so Star Trek too. There was something about it that felt like 90s Trek, but elevated to now. And I loved everything about it.
The
And
CG work
how
is
can I get a
top
cool
notch.
effect where I do this? And then my eyes turned like all crazy.
done
Yeah.
from home.
sorry, my cat's trying to get into the room, so I just had to open the door.
Cats on podcast. I'm here for it.
Anyway,
Instant
Um,
sub.
I thought the VFX in that scene was so awesome. Like right away, we were waiting for the big VFX shot to really happen because there's so much has been put into the season, and there's been so much action in this episode. Is very much more focused on the characters and what they're going through. So when that happened, I was like, oh my god, like this budget is amazing. The whole crew, everything's fantastic. That being said, I think that the threads on Twitter are going to be amazing about this episode.
Shut up, Whitley.
I've already seen some really good deep dive threads. So
Brittany, did the scene not remind you of Infinity Train and the memories?
yeah.
Like,
Oh, yeah,
just straight up,
definitely.
it looked just like it. And I was like, oh
like the
my
tentacles
God.
and everything, and I
Yeah.
was just like, well done. I wonder if they watched that show.
I'm sure they do.
But I liked how it looks like it's kind of like synapses and like nerve endings that are connecting to her, and how also the fact that she was so afraid to even let them touch her or like to begin this whole discovery, and Burnham's like, no, you have to do it. Like it's
The
gonna
discovery of
solve-"
discovery.
Yes.
I got that from you, Brittany. It's all
You
your
did.
fault.
But I was like, she said that, you have to let them touch you. You have to let this happen, or else you will never know. Like, you have to get this future. You won't be able to move on until you deal with this. And that's so heavy on accepting, once again, and the PTSD. So Adira slowly begins to regain her memories of her and her boyfriend, a Trill named Gray, played by the brilliant, wonderful Ian Alexander.
Yay.
And they were both orphans aboard a generation ship, and they fell in love, and they were in such a cute little love, and we saw their backstory, and it was so cute, and there were gifts, and there was like cute stuff. Anyway,
Sorry, go ahead.
go ahead. No, it's a Twitch. Go ahead.
No, it's not a Twitch. It's about this. So finish your thought.
Okay. I was just going to explain to whoever's watching in case they don't know. Gray had just received his symbiote when the ship was struck by an asteroid and people were ordered to evacuate. Gray had just been given a gift by Adira, so it was a really emotional scene. But then Gray was fatally injured, and his symbiote was joined to Adira because she was the closest by, and somehow it actually took, which we know is because they were just in love so much, and there might be something else going on because later in the episode, more is revealed. So now that she's regained her memory, she's also finally able to see her previous hosts, and they all line up around her. They finally tell her that, she's one of them. She finally understands what it means to be all of one thing and one of all of something. So it's this really awesome moment, which I think really played into the canon of Trill. And it, I think, helps us understand their mentality and their way of life a bit more than somehow even DS9 explained, which I didn't think was possible. So what do we think of these two people, these two actors, their characters, their performances, and also the representation of trans and non-binary characters and actors and Trill culture? Because Trill in the past throughout Star Trek have represented the LGBT community in different ways. And now finally we are seeing that, yes, these Trill are like, this is for sure trans representation via Trill.
It was beautiful. And then we need to say two things like right off the bat here. Blue DeBarrio and Ian Alexander, how fucking amazing were they in this episode?
Chemistry.
The
It
chemistry
felt so
was
real.
absolutely insane. Adira and Gray's love just felt so genuine, like they had just been in love for years and years and years. And for the first meeting of one character in Ian Alexander playing Gray, we've had Adira since last episode. I mean, like the fact that the casting crew of Discovery found Ian and found Blue, I'm just like in awe of their work in this episode. And I already told you guys I was like bawling my eyes out this morning. I almost got like ugly crying level watching their performances. As far as representation, I mean, enough said, right? Like it was on full display in every way it needed to be, and I'm so glad. That is not a pun.
Yes, glad. And it was super authentic too. And I also like that the two actors are not only working with the writers from this point on, because there is that aspect of Gray dies immediately, and that's such a trope with LGBT characters. And there's some good articles out there to discuss it. And me being part of the LGBT community, I get that bury the gays is a thing. But I also like what the series will do with it. And I always think it will be a problem when a character dies, you know, because you see two together and you're just like, oh man, they're both gay. One of them's going to have to die. And hopefully one day that won't have to happen in shows. But the two actors are working so closely with the writers and are making sure it's not going to be a story that's just wrapped in this like trauma or tragedy, like the sad like gay love story. But rather it's just going to be the characters are both going to go on these journeys together. And I think that's so important. And they know actually being out and non-binary and transgender, they know how important the representation is, and they can authentically show that to people for one of the first times on television. Very rarely is it done correctly, and actually with actors who are in fact trans or non-binary.
It felt like they really made an effort. And also I think our podcast is pretty cool because we got 3 dudes here, 2 ladies, and the 2 ladies are both in the LGBT, and I think that's unprecedented. And I feel like our voices are pretty well balanced here. It's like it's nice, and I think the shows are showing that too. I feel like I'm interested to see what they do with the characters, because I mean they killed Hugh and then he's alive again, so and this is a whole thing where this character had been joined for not a very long amount of time and then was passed on, so why are we seeing this sort of shadow in a way? And that's obviously not normal. And so I'm not saying that we're going to see a character come back to life again. I think that would get a little aggressive, but we're seeing something different, and I think it's interesting. And I'm glad that this relationship isn't just going to be possibly, maybe it's past, maybe it's present. I don't know. I think it's interesting to explore, but I'm just loving everything about it, and seeing the representation on screen is important, and in a way that is very accepting. And I feel like Star Trek's always been that way, but I feel like we're really crossing into another level, because women have generally in Star Trek their conversations together are about men. Like, let's do yoga and talk about Riker. And then even we've started watching DS9, and there's been some of that too, where it's like, oh my God, Julian's talking about you, Dax. Yes, I know. That's the only thing we're going to talk about right now. And I feel like with Burnham, she has had her own agency, even when she had an attraction. And now we're seeing these other characters that have their own agency. And when they do have attraction, it's not the most important thing. I like seeing female characters that their attraction to someone else is not their agency. And I feel like we're seeing that. This character is young and is going to be a part of the story, and I'm excited to see where it goes.
The first scene we see them, like, there's an immediate connection between the two characters.
Yes.
And it's so strong and powerful. Like, it was hard to see Adira, like, because the next scene you see her sort of break away because she doesn't want to continue her memories. And there's something really strong and powerful about that. And the fact that they're so interconnected at the end of the episode, I know a lot of my friends are in the LGBTQ community, and there's a lot of hiding when you're younger, and them being young actors. I wonder if they're going to play off that idea that she's going to be hiding this part of her to the crew, and them playing off of that idea.
I don't know. I feel like the most important thing to me about Star Trek has always been, especially as a woman, but with these other characters, is just the best thing about being in the future is you get to live your life in a way that you get to have your full potential, where I think that white men have the fullest potential, and then everybody is sort of a tier down from that. And I can't imagine the day being able to walk down the streets in my garbage ass pajamas, looking like hell, just waking up and my hair is like this, and people are like, "Hey girl!" And I just imagine, if that hasn't been my entire life experience, who would I be? Because I'm not upset with who I am, but who would I be without all of those things that make me nervous or uncomfortable or this or guarded or worried about my interactions, especially with men. And I love Star Trek for that, because I just see, when I see female characters, I see their potential, and I just see myself in a future place. So I look at it as like, I don't even look at those things. I'm looking at this future version and seeing potential.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think if Adira, I almost said Blue, Adira hides this aspect, it's going to be more so because she needs it hidden. Like, it's this, she wants to figure things out and see why she's still seeing Gray, and what exactly that means, because she has to learn a lot about Trill. And we don't know that much about Trill, so maybe that is a thing that maybe they can technically see people and we just haven't seen it before in Star Trek. But my guess it's because of the depth of their relationship and the fact that the symbiote agreed to be in a human because of this love. Like, the symbiote chose that. What about you, Hawk?
I think that, yeah, you were right. The Trill storylines have usually kind of explored these issues and that, like, you know, back when we were first introduced to the Trill back in TNG and that, you know, Beverly kind of ran into her very first barrier towards this race and that she couldn't quite get past, you know, the changing into different bodies and that. It's a little hard to put in words, but I thought this really was kind of like the perfect way of exploring not just the Trill and that, but like
gender identity and
yeah, you know,
morality.
and this, like, the storyline was so good. I mean, these two people in that, you know, on this like Genesis ship and that, you know, orphaned and that, and it's like they kind of found each other in that, and this really made sense to me, like how the symbiont, you know, that Adira was able to accept the symbiont in that, you know. When Riker did it, he was just basically acting like a huge blood bag for it till it got to its rightful owner. And that, no, this was something she wanted. You know, it's like she lost the love of her life and that, and it's like this was her only chance of holding on to that little part of her.
Exactly.
I love that the synapses that were going towards Adira weren't going like in a menacing way. Like, I don't know if that makes sense. Like,
no, it doesn't.
animated.
Oh, they were like trying to find her.
Yeah,
you know.
Yeah. Like, there was a part of her that was just making her whole. And
it was the symbiote and her own memories reaching out for her, and she was the one that was guarding herself. But when she opened up and reached out and to touch them, they just met her nicely.
That's so damn good. Beautiful.
Yeah.
I feel like as a species, you know, humanoid that we are, I feel like we're in a big turning point where we are. I think evolution, we've gone from throwing rocks at each other to sort of finding definitions to, you know, creating technology. And I think now we're evolving to the point where we're just changing and we're allowing ourselves to become something, I think, that's other in a good way. Like we're finding the true versions, and that makes us better. And then we have the other side that's, you know, scared of change and all of this. But I think that Star Trek is showing us that the futures welcome that. And I'm really excited about that. I think that's really important.
One more thing. Just one more thing. How great was the metaphor of the quilt?
Yeah. It was really great.
Yeah, like the whole thing.
The whole quilt.
Yeah, I mean, like, you know, these things that you add patches to and that, like, you know, throughout different phases of a person's life and that, and it's like how, you know, multiple generations can be added to it and that, and the interconnecting of the threads and that, just like the tendrils reaching out, trying to make connection to her.
Yeah, the symbolism in this season has been strong between the tree, the branches, and then the threads literally tying and weaving to people's stories and like their lives together. Julian, do we have anybody else on Twitch, or do you want to give any thoughts? Because I
already gave mine a while ago.
So, back on the ship.
Have your thoughts in our grasp.
Back on the ship, the crew finally takes time to open up to one another and talk to each other about their feelings and problems instead of pretending things are fine. Even if it's not necessarily with words, but reaching out, hugging one another, or finally reaching understanding, listening, and apologizing. Lots of big steps were made here. Saru gathers the crew and shows them a Buster Keaton film, and for the first time in a long time, joy fills the room. And we also end the episode with Gray appearing to Adira as she's playing the cello, and Michael just left the room, so we as an audience didn't see Gray there, and then once she leaves, we see Gray. So we assume Gray is most likely in her subconscious, or it's some sort of way that the symbiote, since it houses so many personalities, it's like the symbiote is showing that personality, and that person's still alive within her. So it's a heartfelt moment, and the two practice the cello together. How do we feel about that ending and those two plot lines kind of converging that way?
I love that Georgia. Oh, sorry, Hawk, go ahead.
You sure?
Yeah, go ahead.
This feels like something completely different in that, we were expecting her to make connection to the memories in that of the previous hosts in that, but like for Gray to actually show up like almost in a physical presence in that right beside her, showing her how to correctly, do the bowing and fingering in that. This is something else.
Yeah, that I was gonna say I love that Giorgio took the popcorn unwillingly from Linus.
I loved it.
But to continue what Hawk said, this I think like the easy assumption is that it's the subconscious, right? But it's not. This is going to end up being something about the Trills that we didn't know.
Mm-hmm.
It's not like an imaginary friend. It's not subconscious. It's not Adira going crazy. Like this is because of the love that they have for each other, and possibly because
it's something new because species.
I'm literally about to say that.
Sorry. Sorry, Julian.
It's okay. I was about to say, and it could have something to do with Adira being human, and the fact that Blue was. I mean, I just did what Brittany did. Gray being Trill. So
even Will Wheaton said that we're going to learn more about the Trill species as the season goes on, and he can't say anything.
I told
because
you all.
Yep.
I told you all we were going to learn about the Trill. I said this episode would be 10 out of 10 because it's Trill-tastic.
Brittany is the prophet.
It was trilling.
I just knew as soon as I saw they were like, they said, oh, these two cast, like they're joining our cast and these are what their characters are going to be. I was like, is Ian Alexander a goddamn Trill? Oh my God. And I lost my mind. Ian, sorry. But anyway, I loved these characters. I loved the way this episode ended. There was so much character growth, and that's what I love about the show too. Like what they did in 50 minutes here was beautiful. And I mentioned this in the Discord and to Julian earlier. I'm a huge fan of the Trill, and this episode is the best Trill episode that has ever happened in Star Trek. This also goes down as one of the best Star Trek episodes, I think, ever. And I haven't seen all of Star Trek, mind you, but I mean, just the message and what they were able to do in this episode, and I don't know how, but I mean, they're just amazing actors. Like Ian and Blue DeBarrio are amazing.
It's hard to disagree with you.
Yeah.
Yeah, what they were able to do in such a short period of time. You saw like basically people are like, oh, The Notebook, love, whatever. No, watch 10 minutes of those two share screen time together, and that's fucking true love. Like that was acting. That was amazing, and I was crying, and it was like the beginning of Up. I was like, shit, I just saw Lifetime in 2 seconds.
There was so much crying in this episode.
But I do agree. I knew that this episode already did so much more in terms of in terms of canon for Trill. You already learned so much more of Trill in 50 minutes than we have over whole series in Star Trek. And then I have no doubt in my mind that it's not just a subconscious thing that she's seeing, and that it is going to have something to do with either the symbiote connecting to a human or to a species that's quote non-Trill, that they don't know what happens to every species when they combine. And it's also the fact that they have this relationship, and it was so soon after Gray received the symbiote that it was that way of holding on to Gray and keeping Gray literally alive. So I think that you're basically having two people inside of one character, and you're going to see it portrayed as the two actors together on screen. Not that they're going to switch in and out necessarily like a Jekyll and Hyde scenario, but it's going to be so cool to see these two actors together, and I hope it continues for the rest of the show. I love it. I fucking love it. I love you both. Good job.
Okay, I just really want to jump in and say I agree with everything, and I'm excited to see how they sort of do this relationship together. And I think that, I mean, the weirdest thing that I would say is I think of this old show called Space Cases from Nickelodeon, where there was a character who saw another character, if you guys ever saw this, and she had an invisible friend, and everybody was like, you're crazy. And then in the second season, like, they just kind of switched places, and all of a sudden the invisible friend was there. Like, I feel like there's this interesting, and they were on a spaceship, and it was cool.
Okay. That's probably the plot of the show.
It was called Space Cases. It had the first Walter Emmanuel Jones, who was the first Power Ranger in the first season of Power Rangers, and he was great.
Jill State's in it too.
What's that?
Jill State's in it from Fire.
Yeah, and she that's her. She was the character. Like that.
Well, dang.
She's the one who switched. There was the rainbow hair. Never mind. But Yes, you get me, Eric. I feel like they're exploring new territory because they've introduced humanity into this in an interesting way. I think the scene between all the Trill was beautiful with all of the different hosts, and we'd seen it. I mean, I don't know about you guys, I haven't seen all of DS9, but seeing all of the hosts together and seeing the calm of Adira from like the difference between at the first part of the episode when they were like, tell us your name, and she was like, I'm Adira, whatever, and at the end she was like, I'm this Adira, and she used all the
tall.
Yeah.
Tall, thank you. That's what.
Okay.
Thank you, God, because I was just like, oh fuck, I can't remember. And then at the end, she said, I'm Adira Tall, and it was like, it just felt so complete, and we've never seen a Trill that has shared a symbiote between two, like the Trill with in DS9, they both know Cisco. And the friendship, because you have Jadzia and then Ezri, and they both know, and even who was it before?
Curzon.
Yeah, Curzon. Yeah.
So there are 3 hosts that have this relationship with him, but to have the hosts have relationships with each other, I think that is unprecedented, and I think that's part of this connection. And there's also the human element, and it's beautiful and it's interesting, and I want to know what happens next.
I agree. Anybody
Shout out to veteran actor Kenneth Welsh in that. He played Senatol in the Flash when they
amazing.
That was really great.
The old man. Yeah.
Yeah. So I guess we'll move on to our final thoughts and overall rating out of 10 squids. I changed it because I thought it was so funny. I always call them I'm like, oh, little wormies. You hear me say it all the time, and now it's apparently squids.
I'm just gonna say quick because we're like so over on time. 10 out of 10 squids. Easy.
10
Like
out
I
of
would
10.
give it more.
10 out of 10 for sure.
Go ahead, down the line. I'll go last.
10 out of 10. And if you hear my dog barking, it's because he's in here and he's so excited about this episode.
10 squiddies.
And I'll also give it a 10 out of 10. I would have renamed this episode Trials and Tribulation. Tribulation.
Wait, you guys want to hear this? 10 out of 10 squids, right? Hilo, speak! There you go.
That's awesome.
And I was going to say, and it's 10 out of 10 because I'm already perfect. That's why you love me.
Yes. Oh,
And
Brittany,
that's
real
how-
quick on Twitch,
yeah.
you got called out by Mag. Brittany cried. I don't believe it.
I cried so fucking hard, Mag. Anyway, I had a lot more thoughts about this episode, but it's impossible because it was too good. So
Join our
we'll have to
Discord.
discuss it in
We talk about
Discord.
it. Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, thanks to everybody on Twitch for joining us tonight and choosing us over crazy news, which is amazing. If anybody
so
showed
much
up.
better.
On our main episode this Saturday at 9:30 p.m., we'll be talking about the music of Star Trek, and apparently, it won't be live, but we'll have a pre-recorded segment with
Jeff Russo. It'll be
Jeff Russo.
edited
Okay,
in
good.
for,
I was
for
worried I was gonna say
Saturday. So we're ready to
Amazing.
final details with that. But yeah.
So good.
So yeah, join us on Twitch this Saturday and send us your thoughts ahead of time in our mailbag, and we can mention them in our episode and talk about it. And not sure if this is going to happen or not because of how things are going tonight with the election, but possibly following this stream, we might do another DS9 watch along. We'll have to see how many people in the Discord are mentally able to do that right now, or would like to. So,
I mean, I'm in.
Can you make the other announcement, or is that not happening?
Oh, I will make the other announcement. So, you guys know how much I love Ian Alexander, the most amazing human in the world, and how much I love Trill. So I reached out to Ian and talked because we're mutuals on Twitter, and they're just cool. And they will also be doing possibly a pre-recorded segment for us to use in next week's episode. So they're going to talk about their character from this episode, but they're currently filming season 4, which they already know because they announced it on Twitter. So I'm allowed to say that now.
But it got canceled.
But they're no.
Yeah, sure.
Ian's currently filming season 4, so we can't record exactly at the time we normally do. But they will be discussing their character with us this episode and lots of amazing things. So even though we went over time here, if you want us to ask anything or talk about stuff, we are going to have a segment with them anyway, so shoot us stuff on Discord. So for Julian, Hawk, Eric, Aaron, and all the children, Majram, and have a good night. Thanks for beaming into our podcast today. If you want to keep the hailing frequencies open, you can subscribe on Apple and Google Podcasts, YouTube, and Spotify. Like what you hear? Put in a good word with Starfleet and leave us a 5-star review.